How's he not dead? All right, there we go. Happening. Beat him. All right, boys. So we finally have the end game build guide for you. We beat all the pinnacle bosses, and we've farmed up our T18s, and with delirium and breach, and the build feels fantastic. It's able to do everything in the game. So that's when I said that I would drop the guide. So here we are. If you are brand new and looking to start a build from scratch, please watch the video in the description for the starter build. This is what you'll transition into at about level 85 or so, when you have some levels and a little bit of currency and stuff like that. So again, just starting out, watch the video in the description first. It explains the skill breakdown and how we use them and why and all that kind of stuff. This guide, we're just going to kind of go over what we've done and where we are. Not going to get too deep into the mechanics and stuff like that. That was all explained in the starter video. So brand new, go watch that. And then again, like, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. And let's get into it. So I've been having a lot of fun with this one. Like I said, it's been fantastic. You can farm up, delirious breaches and T18 maps, and it can beat the pinnacle boss. And, when you find the citadels, it destroys those bosses. And so it turned out this build is really nice and really well rounded. There's some other builds out there that are just, super powerful at bossing, and, they rock, the corpse wave boots, and, you walk around really, so that require very specific uniques. And so again, this build, I tried to make all arounder. I tried to keep it away from any sort of exploits or anything like that some of the other builds have been using, so that hopefully it will, remain if any nerfs come or anything. So I think that it's in a very good place where I don't think it's going to get hit with any nerfs. It was built correctly, and there's no exploits or anything. So I think we're good there. And like I said, very pleased. But let's get right into the skill gems now. So we have changed some things. We are using gas arrow and poisonous concoction. Poisonous concoction is our bossing skill, and gas arrow and vine arrow are our mapping skills. So getting right into poisonous concoction. While we're just cruising around, we use martial tempo, close combat, scatter shot, chaos infusion, and chaos mastery. When I say that, I mean when we're just like mapping and we need to kill just regular map bosses and stuff like that, then this is the setup that we use. When we go into like a pinnacle boss or something like that, we actually swap a couple skills with gas arrow. So let me say we're on gas arrow with deadly poison, comorbidity, acceleration, bursting plague, and inspiration. So what we do if we're going to fight a big boss and we don't have a bunch of ads and mapping and stuff, what we like to do is we just literally switch those two around. So we put deadly poison and comorbidity into poisonous concoction, and then martial tempo and close combat. These don't really do anything, but we only do this in situations where we don't really need the gas arrow to do much damage. So that's that, nice and quick. You don't even have to do it. It works fine. But when you switch the two poison into the poisonous concoction, it gets really out of control. So, and as you can see, the damage on pinnacle boss at the start of the video and stuff. So it is crazy. Not necessary to always do, but if you're fighting the pinnacle boss, it's worth a quick little swap. Vine arrow, a little bit different than it was before. We're using swift affliction, font of rage, font of mana, and persistent. So we just get more skill effect duration. The reason why I'm using this is just so that it's easier to kind of have them all over the place. And then we can take advantage of font of rage and font of mana. And what that means is that, as you can see, if we shoot the vine arrow into the air and we stand on it, it helps us generate rage, which is more attack damage. So what we like to do is put this out at the start of the boss fight, and then generate a little bit of rage while they're doing their thing. And then, we put a little bit of damage on them, wait for them to come in, rain of arrows, and then we just start peaconking them, right? So that's why we use that's why we're using font of rage and font of mana. So again, while we're running around mapping, and we put a little duration, these are kind of all over the place. So we're just kind of moving from one to one, and it helps us generate mana and rage and all that. So it feels pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Next, we go into Rain of Arrows with Withering Touch. So originally we were using Dark Effigy. And so the thing about this is Rain of Arrows is better for getting quicker stacks onto bosses. We really only use Rain of Arrows on bosses. Sometimes we'll throw it out in a breach or something like that if we're getting surrounded. But generally we use this against bosses. What you need for Withering Touch is the skill has to do chaos damage. So your option is to either use Chaos Infusion in Rain of Arrows, but unfortunately it is a pretty big damage buff to our Poisonous Concoction. Or you have to find somewhere in your build, you have to find extra or damage as extra chaos. So as you can see, we have just a little bit of chaos here, 18 to 116, which is enough for it to proc Withering Touch. So just keep that in mind that if you don't have any chaos damage in your build, you need to use Dark Effigy like the original build, right? Like the starter guide, we use Dark Effigy. And then later when we have, and I'll show you where we get it from. We get it out of our tree. There's you can either get it out of one of the nodes, depending on if you want a path up there, or you can get it out of a unique jewel. So next, we actually go into Blasphemy with Despair and Magnified Effect. The reason for this is we were self-casting it previously, which is fine. If you're having trouble with Spirit or whatever and you want to self-cast it, that's fine. You can go ahead and do that. It'll save you 60 Spirit. But the reason why I've put that on there is we've actually also added in Sniper's Mark. So since we do crit damage with our Poisonous Concoction for bosses, and Sniper's Mark does not count as a curse, you can have Sniper's Mark and Despair on an enemy. So we do lose some effect with Despair on Blasphemy, but without losing a button push, so it just automatically applies to anything that is close to us. We lose a button push, it makes it a little bit easier to just call in Sniper's Mark. So we manually cast Sniper's Mark, and then when we get close to the boss, it curses them with Despair. And generally, when we're using Poisonous Concoction, we're standing right next to them, so they have Despair on them. We have the mark on them, and it's just more damage. Okay, so that's what we're doing there. But you are not required to put this on Blasphemy if you don't have the Spirit or you'd rather use something else. Next, our big defensive aura or buff now is Wind Dancer, and we use Clarity, Cannibalism, Blind, and Wind Wave. So anytime that our Wind Dancer procs and sends out the wave, it blinds. So that helps with just defensive capabilities and helps us get out of there when we blind. And then Wind Wave, if we get stunned, it just knocks enemies back. So this has become really nice, and it's super helpful, especially in breaches. Sometimes breach monsters will just swarm you, and then you get hit and it kind of backs them off, and it'll leave you a path to get out or to wait until they die from poison or whatever the case is. And then Lingering Illusion we use just because this is kind of, again, nice survivability. If we're in trouble and we dive, it creates a copy that draws aggro from bosses, so it'll help us, escape or just not get totally focused by everything on the screen. We kind of used our Dark Effigy for this before, so if you're still on Dark Effigy, that still works nicely for aggro as well. And then again, lastly, we're on Sniper's Mark with Arcane Tempo. So these are the skills that we're using and the gems and all that. Again, this is the standard layout, and this is all in the Mobalytics. I do have that all built out for you guys. I tried to be as detailed as possible this time and give you all the information that you need. So we'll go through that a little bit more in depth at the end, but I just wanted to let you know that that is available. Next, let's get into the gear. So we're still on the same bow from the update, and this is probably where it'll live. What you're looking for is dual string is very, very nice. Not necessary, but it is helpful. And then we're looking for flat elemental damages as much as possible, attack speed, and all projectile skills. +4 is ideal. It is an insane amount of damage. It is also an insane amount of mana cost. So as you're adding these +4 to the level of all projectile skill gems into your build, you are going to notice your damage is going to skyrocket, and so is the cost of your skills. So even with inspiration, right? So let me show you guys why we moved to inspiration, which is 40% less cost. So without inspiration, our gas arrow costs 280 mana to cast. So as you can see, it goes pretty quick. Inspiration, drops it to 168. So it is a massive, massive help. And know that you get an insane amount of damage from the levels, but you also boost the cost of your skills by quite a bit. Quiver, same as the update video. We're looking for flat lightning is always my favorite. Damage with bow skills. Ideally, this has projectile speed on it, but obviously this is a nice quiver, and I don't have it, but ideally it's lightning, damage with bows, and projectile speed, and then +2 projectile skills and attack speed. The last one on there is up to you. Dex is nice just because it's Dex and we need it. We need a ton of attributes all over the place. So the only thing that I would change about this one is I wish that fire damage was projectile speed. But other than that, this is exactly what you want. Let's see, amulet. We have max life, max life, +2 to all projectile skills, Dex, and some all res. So what I will say is that life is very, very powerful in this game. You don't find a lot of it. So a lot of your life is just based on flat life rolls. So if you can get a couple lives in your build, it is a lot of life. So keep an eye out for that. I think it's a little underrated at the moment, but if you can get a double roll like that, it is a ton. We're at 2650. If we take it off, we're at 2360. So this amulet giving us 300 life with 72 and 7%, right? 300 life out of that. So it's a lot. And then again, projectile skills, Dex, we want the projectile skills everywhere we can get it, which is quiver, amulet, and bow. You can get 4 here, 2 here, 2 here. So we are maxed out on our gear, giving us +8. As far as rings, pretty standard stuff: life, mana regen, mana on kill, resistances, attributes, all that kind of stuff. So as you can see, we have a ton of attributes and resistances all over the place. These are pretty nice rings. Life. And where you get them, like if you had one, strength and, lightning res on this one, and then on this one you had fire res and dex, like that's fine, or intelligence or whatever. They don't have to be in these exact places. You just obviously need to have these things on your gear somewhere. Here again, we have some resistances, some attributes, some life, and some evasion. All the gear is fairly similar. There's not a ton of options. Like I said, we're looking for life, mana, attributes, and resistances. And that's pretty much it. Again, body armor, you need extra spirit either on your armor or on your amulet. You don't need both unless you want to run more auras. So wherever you can get it. As you can see, we don't even have life on this body armor. We just have a ton of evasion and all that. And what I'll say is I have tried out a few different body armors here. And so and there are benefits to both. Like for instance, this one has a ton of life, but it doesn't even have 1,000 evasion on it. It has been corrupted with chaos res and all that. This is a really, really nice body armor, right? And then this one, is not as nice, but it has a ton of evasion. It doesn't have the chaos res and all that. But this right now has been better generally because we do have a good life pool. I think you want about 2,500 is the ideal. If you can get up there on a ranger, you're doing pretty good. But with 2,600 health and, our evasion is with acrobatics, we're at 76%. And if we dodge roll, that gets us up to 78. Resists are all capped, all that. Obviously, we wish we had a little bit more chaos res here, but it is what it is. So what I've found is that generally, for most of the game, the evasion is more helpful than that little bit of extra life. However, the little bit of extra life roll is better for bossing. So that's kind of what I found, is that generally speaking, I prefer this body armor. 9 times out of 10, this is going to benefit me more than the life roll one. But this will help you tank a big hit from a boss or something like that. So as you can see, our life goes up to 2,900, which is a lot for a ranger. So again, that's really the only benefit, but this is the one that I'm going to use. These are actually up for sale. This is the one that I'm happy with 1,600 evasion on it and spirit and a bunch of resists and all that kind of stuff. So generally speaking, this has been nicer just because we already have such a nice life pool. Gloves, obviously, we're still on the plague fingers. These are still super, super cheap. I have multiple different versions because we've made a lot of changes, and as we've gotten gear, You know, depending on whether I need cold or mana regen or whatever the case is. Right now we're on mana regen because you need it all over your build. But again, these are very, very cheap. They're still an exalt. Well, again, if this, if you're watching this in another league, you'll have to see, but these are beginner items. They don't even have a required level on them. So these should remain cheap unless, GGG, increase or, drops the drop rate considerably and makes it, a T1 or T0 unique or whatever, which they're not gonna. This is not, the item itself is not fantastic outside of the line that we need to where it allows us to use elemental damage for poison, right? So again, keep an eye out for those. There are some really nice corruptions you can get as well if you don't need 2 jewel sockets or rune sockets. So keep an eye out for that. Our belt, where we have life, mana, 1 charm slot, and then some resistances. That's where we are. You don't need any extra charm slots if you don't want to, but it is nice having all 3, and I'll show you how we get all 3 from the tree. Lastly, our boots, movement speed, max life, cold res, chaos res, pretty nice boots, some good evasion and all that. And I'm sure, a lot of people have asked like, oh, well, what about the corpse weight boots and all that? And again, so you're fine to use those, right? I would recommend using the Queen of the Forest body armor, excuse me. And if you're going to use those boots, because those boots only have 10% movement speed on them, which is very, very slow. And that's the reason why I'm not using them, because obviously you need a corpse to summon your gas arrow or whatever. They don't just pop up, willy nilly. So I personally would rather be able to, cast my gas arrow where I want it. But again, the boots are very, very powerful. You just have to walk around super slow. And then again, you lose 2 rares. I typically try to stay away from as many uniques as possible, because oftentimes uniques have, a very massive benefit, but outside of that, they're typically not that great of items. Generally speaking, some items are very, very powerful across the board, but generally speaking, again, like the corpse weight boots, you have 10% movement speed, which is just madness to me. I won't walk around that slow. I can't. And again, I wish we were even faster than we are. We have pretty good movement speed, 46.5%, which, helps your dodge roll distance and all that. So I'm happy, but I would still even like to get this up. It still feels a little too slow for me. Maybe we'll get 35 movement speed boots and stuff like that eventually, maybe some jewels with movement speed. But that's my reasoning. You are fine to use those if you like it. I just prefer not to walk around slow. And if I were going to use Queen of the Forest, then we lose a lot of stuff from our body armor that we need and that we like. So that's my reasoning. But again, if you like those, there's nothing wrong with them. They are fantastic together. It does make life a little bit easier in some regards, other than having to kind of walk around at a snail's pace or lose your body armor. So again, by all means, if you like them, use them. As far as, let's do flasks. So we do 30% applied instantly plus gains charges per second. And again, same thing here for mana and for life. We use the stone charm for stun with duration. The rolls on the bottom, I actually don't know what the best rolls are for the charms, to be honest. I like the gain charge when you kill an enemy and stuff like that. Duration's nice. So I don't actually know what the best rolls are on the charms, if I'm being honest. Maybe you guys do. But this is what we have for now. And then we have the silver charm for slows. We have some here. And then obviously we have slowing debuffs on our body armor. So that helps with chill and stuff like that. Again, mana when used and increased charges. And then amethyst just for a little bit of extra chaos, since we don't have our chaos res maxed out. This is nice when you get into the higher levels. We will try to get this. If I get this up above 50, I'll be happy. And then we'll try something else here. But that's that. Those are the items here. So this is our main set. And then this is our second set for Poisonous Concoction. And I'll explain all this, how this works. It's super simple, super clean. But here we're looking for as much as you can possibly get increased bonuses gained from Equip Quiver. I corrupted this one to get it above 250. Ideally, we get it a little bit higher, but this is nice for now. That lightning adds lightning damage, doesn't do anything for us. Someone had already added the rune when I bought this, but the increased elemental damage with attacks does benefit our Poisonous Concoction. So you can use those runes. That is the only one damage-wise that will benefit the build because it's a global modifier, it's not a local modifier. So you can use that and it will buff the damage of your poisonous concoction. And then on the quiver, you don't need anything crazy here. You need crit hit chance, damage with bow skills, +2 to projectile skills. Those are the 3 that you need. And then obviously attack speed is nice, and then dex is nice. But the only necessary one, well, the only necessary one is all projectile skills. Damage with bow skills is nice, and then crit hit chance is really nice too. And then the others are whatever. But you need the +2 to projectile skills when you start this. Make sure you get a quiver. It doesn't have to be good. Like I only paid a few exalts for this one. It does not have to be a crazy quiver. You just need the +2, and then obviously the damage with bows is nice, you know, all that kind of stuff. So that's the weapon swap, and now we'll kind of get into that. So the way that the weapon swap works is you don't have to push X like you used to have to push in Path of Exile 1. The way we've set this up is so Poisonous Concoction does not have a weapon set, so there is some confusion there, right? Gas Arrow, we put on 1. Vine Arrow, we put on 1. Rain of Arrows, we put on 2. Blasphemy is nothing. Okay, these are all the auras you want on both, obviously, because you want them to be on both of them. But so now, and then Sniper's Mark, we put on 2. Okay, so Sniper's Mark on 2, Rain of Arrows on 2, Gas Arrow and Vine Arrow on 1. And so now let me show you. So what we like to do is when we get into the boss, right, we throw out a little bit of damage, we start generating our rage, all that. We're still on weapon set 1. When we call, so now as we have our stuff out, when we call in our Rain of Arrows, it swaps us automatically. And then that's when we would start Poisonous Concoctioning. And as soon as we want to go back to the other, we just Vine Arrow, boom. So all you have to do is push the skill that you want, and it will swap over. Now, with Poisonous Concoction, because it doesn't have a weapon slot, we need to always call in Rain of Arrows first, swap us over, Poisonous Concoction. And then we can start evading, doing whatever we need to do, right? Run up on the boss, Rain of Arrows, Poisonous Concoction. So as you can see, it automatically swaps just by using the different skills. So it's very, very simple. Remember, all you need to do, Gas Arrow, Vine Arrow are on 1. All of our buffs and stuff are going away. Gas Arrow, Vine Arrow on 1. Rain of Arrows, Sniper's Mark on 2. So again, what I like to do, boss, throw out a couple Vine Arrows. Boom. Boss comes in, Rain of Arrows, and then we curse with Mark, right? And we're standing next to it, so it's already cursed. And then boom, and then we just Poisonous Concoction. So super simple, very clean. I actually was not interested in a weapon swap initially until it was explained to me how easy it was from a couple dudes in chat who have helped me out with a number of these things. And yeah, so that's that. Very simple, very smooth. And now let's get into the tree. So I'd also, again, this is all in the Mobalytics, so you're able to take a look and the 2 trees and all that with the weapon swap, all available, so you can kind of cruise through that at your leisure. So because when you get into our damage feels good, so what we end up doing is we do need to take a fair amount of evasion in the tree. So we actually, the movement speed's really, really nice. Like I said, if you want a little bit more damage and you don't care about the movement speed and stuff, by all means, you're welcome to go through this. I wouldn't go through Pierce. I would go up and around, but if you want it, or come down and over or something like that. But if you don't necessarily care about the movement speed and stuff like that, or maybe you are using Queen of the Forest, you're welcome to go around, save yourself some points, whatever. I went through movement speed and a bunch of evasion through here. We come up, we take all of the quiver nodes, because again, assuming you are a higher level at this point and you have a decent quiver, we want to take all these. We didn't take them as early in the other build just because we had just such a nonsense quiver and it really wasn't doing much for us at the time. Now, excuse me, voice crack. Now this is one of the most powerful clusters in the entire tree for us. So this is a must. We take every point there, come up into the poison stuff again. We come down here, and now this is some of the new stuff, right? So we actually moved on to a controlled metamorphosis. This is a large ring. This costs a couple divines. But what it allows us to do is have points connected to our tree that are, or points allocated that are not connected to our tree. So this is what allows us to keep deterioration. But all we do is we lose all these 4 nodes right here, they're fine. You know, you get a little bit of damage out of it. But we lose these 4 nodes. And now we can take Crystal Elixir, which is 40% increased elemental damage during any flask effect. And we use our flasks fairly often, so this is pretty good. But it also allows us to take all 3 of the charm nodes. So we get an extra charm slot, we get increased damage while you have an active charm plus movement speed, and you get charms applied to you have increased effect. So this is super, super powerful for survivability, or if you want to use a rarity charm, it'll help with magic find, or whatever the case is. This is a super, super good spot for our build to put a large controlled metamorphosis. Keep in mind, they do all have negative to elemental resistances, so you want to do your best to try to find the lowest possible roll you can find. This was the best I could do with the money that I had at the time. And so this has been really, really nice. So go ahead. But again, this is kind of at the end of the road. You're welcome to just keep using these like we were using in the starter guide until you can afford this, or not. If you don't care about a charm, or maybe you have a really nice 2 charm belt and you don't necessarily need the extra charm and all that, and you don't care about the movement speed, then you don't need to do this. You're welcome to just stay here and keep the damage or whatever the case is. And then we cruise up again. Now we have another unique jewel here. This is against the darkness. So for every small passive, we get 1% increased life, and for every notable, we get 4% damage as extra chaos. So this is what I was talking about when I was saying that when you swap away from Dark Effigy to Rain of Arrows, you need that line, that modifier somewhere in your build is gain damage as extra chaos damage. So that is where we're getting our flat from. It is also available on the tree up here, but we don't path up here. So this is more beneficial for Poisonous Concoction itself. It doesn't really benefit us for our Vine Arrow and all that kind of stuff, so it's not really worth the points. But as you can see, so we're taking even some things like we're penetrating here, but again, part of it is for the 4% extra chaos. And then this does benefit us to a certain extent, but we wouldn't be taking it if we didn't have this jewel. And then we get 1% max life here. And then again, so all of these small nodes have 1% max life, and all of the big ones have gained 4% of damage as extra chaos damage. So it's quite a bit. And these flasks, we would take these flask ones if whether we had a jewel like this or not. What I do want to say is there are some cheaper ones available. This one is not a cheap one. This is one that I crafted, but you can go in and you can get rare ones that have different size sockets or different size circles, and you can get different things out of them. So like this one has 1% attack damage and chance to blind on small, and it has attack speed and increased bonuses again from quiver on the large ones. So these are a viable option that you can get for very, very cheap. I bought a bunch of them up and just tried crafting them myself. This is one of the ones that I crafted that hit pretty well. But I have a bunch of them that I've gone through. Some of them are decent, some of them aren't. But this is a good cheap alternative where you can just maybe throw a little bit of extra damage in there. I don't think that the life roll and the damages extra chaos roll exist on these. So this is just specifically to the unique. And these also roll a ton of different things. So you have to try to track one down. I would recommend getting the gain damage as extra chaos if possible. And then whatever on top that would most benefit you is fine. But the damage as extra chaos is super, super nice. So that's that. And then again, we cruise through, we take all of the evasion nodes, we come down, we are still using the increases and reductions to projectile speed. We don't have as much in there that I would like. Like I said, I wish we had it on the quiver. It is a massive damage increase. But as of right now, we are lacking a little bit on projectile speed. But this is where we are. Again, get projectile speed on your quiver. Side note, arrow speed does not count as projectile speed. It counts, it's its own modifier, so that does not increase damage. So don't consider that part of your projectile speed. Really do your best to try to get it rolled on the quiver itself. Again, we come down here for movement speed and skill speed. I'm big on the movement speed. So again, if you guys are not as interested in movement speed, you can always swap these into something else and save a couple points. Now, so that's it for the, I'm sorry. So this is just on weapon set 1 for our gas arrow and vine arrow. As you can see, it is orange. It is a different color, so keep an eye out for that. It's same difference in Mobalytics. It is colored. let's see. I believe it's like pink and green. Okay, so these are your 2 weapon sets. Did I just put something in there that I shouldn't have? Oh, these are all okay. Sorry. Dude, what are we doing here? Okay. Sorry, I got a little sidetracked there. What were we going over? Okay, so the weapon swaps. And actually, this might be a little bit easier to explain using the Mobalytics because it's color coded a little bit better. So you have the pink ones are what we use on weapon set 1. So our gas arrow and our vine arrow, again up here, the poison stuff. So we take all the pink ones. These are our weapon set 1. And the green ones are weapon set 2 for poisonous concoction. So there's not much of a difference here. There's not much of a difference. You only have to unallocate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 points. And then what we do with those 15 points is we put them in the chaos wheel here to give us +1. This is a massive damage increase to poisonous concoction. We take a couple here, unarmed damage with unarmed attacks, plus a little bit of attack speed. You could put this somewhere else. You don't necessarily need the attack speed, but. And then we take the full crit cluster. I actually got this, excuse me, God. This one I got from Rue 2 and his poisonous concoction build, and the way he explains it, it all made sense to me. So we do actually grab a little bit of crit out of this just to try to boost up those, we don't crit as often as we would like to, but we throw out a couple of them are going to crit. So we're at about, I think as of right now, we're at with 35% chance. So 1 out of every 3 hits crits, which is enough. If we can throw a few out and stack up a few poisons, we get some good damage into them. So again, green is your poisonous concoction. Pink is weapon set 1 for gas arrow and vine arrow. All you got to do is set it in your tree. What you'll do is, if your build is probably set up with these right now, what you'll do is unallocate all of these, right? And then you'll select weapon set 1, put them in your points, boom, 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 boom. And then you'll select weapon set 2 and then put those in for your poisonous concoction. And that's it. So again, super simple. Vine arrow, gas arrow, stay on weapon set 1. The moment we call in rain of arrows, it switches over. And then boom, we're using poisonous concoction. And when we're done, we switch back just by using the skill. So it's super nice, super convenient. And it all felt like a lot, and I didn't want to do it initially. And then once you realize how easy it is, it's super, super smooth. All right, so now that we've been through the tree, I just want to do a quick overview of the Mobalytics. I tried to be much more detailed this time around. I have all your links. I have all the modifiers and all that you're looking out for, jewel mods, unique jewels, when to switch from hybrid of evasion energy shield to pure evasion and acrobatics, which again, I've explained this a number of times. I didn't explain it in the video, but real quick, it's here in the Mobalytics. But if you want, so here's the thing: if you want to stay hybrid and you already have really nice gear, that is fine. You will be okay. When you plan to switch, the first thing you want to do is find a really nice body armor with at least 1,000 evasion on it, and then make sure that you have at least 16,000 flat evasion in your tooltip before you swap over. So that's we'll just kind of graze over that real quick. But that is also in here. Some anoints, if you're looking for anoints, these are the ones that I used if I had mana problems, if I wanted a cheap damage, but I didn't want to final anoint anything, and then expensive. My final anoint was lasting trauma. It is pretty expensive, but it is a nice damage increase. Got all the items, the skills, all that kind of stuff. Tree, I even included the Atlas tree that I've been using to farm, all that. So everything you need is here. I appreciate all you guys. Like, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff. Come pop into the stream. I'll be live here shortly if you're watching this fresh. I'm on most days. And again, I appreciate all the support. I appreciate all the help. You guys have been fantastic. And we'll see you in the stream. Appreciate you guys. Peace.